From our Brooklyn, New York studios, we're talking about travel baseball along this eastern seaboard and excited. Ajay Vulimiri joins us from Artillery Baseball, just 3 years old, and yet the number 125 team in the nation coming through the 22 now into the 23 season. Man, thanks for making the ride up from Jersey, more by Philly, and hanging out with us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Aaron.
So it's interesting for you. You have a wonderful day job with the Department of Defense,
Yep.
IT, and you're able to do that. Yet you spend a lot of your life on these young athletes. Wonderful when you look at it because it's a labor of love. What drew you to the baseball side? The intelligence in your career is there. What drew you to the passion to baseball?
So I would say this. I would say first, I started off at St. Joe's and
Pitched there,
blew out my shoulder my freshman year. And at that point, I was on a 65% academic scholarship and a 35% baseball, so nothing crazy baseball. And the school was like, hey, we're probably going to need you to move on. And then the school came back and was kind of like, well, we're going to convert your 35% baseball to academic. And it was going to be a full ride. And then funny story, so my dad calls me up and goes, hey, look, I get it. You want to keep playing baseball? But he goes, funny thing, he goes, is $1 Million Arm, the movie, was already made. So he was kind of like, yeah, your whole pro baseball career is probably not going to happen being 5'7". So then, so at that point, I started coaching my brother's Little League team because he's 4.5 years younger than I am. So I started doing that, cool, fun, all good. And then started, touching back base with my high school coach. And then from that point going forward, Joe Barth calls from the Tri-State Arsenal. And he somehow finds out through the woodworks that I did the Texas baseball branch stuff for 3.5 years of my high school career. And at that point, like 2010, 2011, we all know that it wasn't that prevalent up here. And you either had people who been through it and didn't remember it.
Sure.
Or you had people who just bought the set of DVDs and thought they know it. But there was never a combination of both. And I happened to be that one guy that was a combination of both, which gives kids a lot of perspective because I was able to tinker with Ron's program a little bit just based on what worked for me and what didn't work versus just being the guy who just goes through the book every day and just runs through it.
So there is the birth. There's your foundation for the coaching part.
Yeah.
The game itself is the fact that you played.
Yeah.
You played in college. And there's the birth. And so you grow with, as I understand it, you grow with Tri-State.
Yeah.
Eventually they grow to the point where they sell. And then you move to start developing your own program and partnering off. And now you're in year 3 of Artillery.
Yep.
And you've partnered with East Coast Ghost, who is a good partner of Perfect Games. A lot of, we see that name a lot at all age groups.
Yep.
But you're specifically in year 3, just 4 age groups. Expound upon that.
Yep, so my program has always been built on the idea of 1 team per age group. And so when I first started doing this, it was when I was with Arsenal. It was supposed to be a guest team model. And it was about giving kids opportunities who don't go to World War Bat, who don't go to PG World Series, some of those southern events. And then after a year of 8th graders with the 21 grade, they chose to stay together. And then all of a sudden I'm like, well, this is kind of cool. So then I was like, well, I wonder if I can do it again. So I did it with 22s because obviously you and I both know all those 21s who are 9th graders all know 8th graders. So the Gavin Brasowskis of the world, the Saborn Campbells of the world, those guys from Michigan, all of a sudden led me into Brock Porter, Ike Irish, Donovan Canterbury, Jack Creighton. And then, I did a little 8th grade year with them. And then they wanted to stay together. And then, so then the following year, I'm like, all right, now I'm 2 teams deep. I'm like, I wonder if I can make a 23 team of 8th graders. Did that, and that had Eddie Copper, Cameron Tilley, AJ Gracia, Chris Akopian, and I can keep going on name. Johnny Farmello played here. And I was like, oh, well, I did 3 of these now. So then, and then by the end of it, they wanted to stay together. And then, obviously in year 4, one graduates out and the other one comes in. And, the whole premise is the idea that you get a national program feel, but have that local flavor to it.
Got it.
So the idea that it's very easy to get a hold of me because basically it's just me. And I mean, kids can call, parents can call, and we can, talk about whatever they want to talk about. And it's not like I have to worry about, that franchise in Idaho or, that other program in North Carolina or any, like I don't have that. And, the Ghost partnership has been really good because, Pat Gironi, who the parent company's PRD, he does a great job of staying in his lane also. Like, he wants to dominate the Northeast as like a regional powerhouse. I had no desire of doing that. And, at that point, it was probably before last year, a lot of people said, Ajay, you have the house. No, you have the roof, but no house. And I kind of looking around, I talked to, a bunch of people in the industry, and a lot of people wanted me to like change my name to whatever that org was. And Pat was the only one that said, no, we're not going to do that. He was like, I want East Coast Ghost and Artillery to run parallel to each other with the goal that, we get to a World War bat. He goes, yes, Ajay, your teams are supposed to go to the Final Four and be number one in the country. But he goes, maybe one day we can have two teams in the Final Four. And it kind of gives kids, one from the Northeast, they have two options now. And, and a lot of people don't really know that they are tied together. Mm. Kind of like, when you go to the airport and you're on American Airlines, but it might be being operated by a British Airways staff. But on the face of it, you think it's two separate companies.
And yet you guys share resources,
yep.
Not about moving players around for the wins. You share resources, which is great if you're in the same tournament. You guys are in the Academies division of
yep.
the High School Showdown.
Yep.
Played one another, later
yep.
on in that event. Mm-hmm. What I find is interesting is that culture you're creating on a national level, where it's intimate on a national level. What are some of the expectations? So if I'm Brock Porter, or if I'm a player on your 25 team, we'll talk. If I'm Ty Thompson,
yep.
what are some of the expectations for me if I want to wear an artillery uniform that speak to culture, that speak to, the values that matter for you?
Yep. I mean, the biggest thing is, especially with that 25 team, especially Ty, I mean, he's so humble. And he wants to have a ton of fun. And he wants to be able to show people that, like, I guess all those kids kind of had the chip on their shoulder because they weren't playing for one of those big orgs. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to kind of show the world oh, we can do this too. And we don't need 3,000 teams underneath us to do this. And, for any kid that comes here, I mean, like I said, the number one thing is you better have a personality. It's kind of similar to how Tennessee baseball operates. We let the kids be them out of the gate. And does it get us into a little trouble once in a while? Sure. But I'd rather the kids be them rather than conform them to this is what baseball has to be like. Because it doesn't have to be. I mean, you can reinvent it 10,000 times. And hence why you see Pickle Rick running around on the field every once in a while. There's that little pink octopus called Luffy that team has. And, I mean, you don't see many national powers having little mascots run on the field. And do people look at it probably like, oh, it's a circus, it's a clown show, whatever. That's what it looks like from the outside. But on the inside, you have 20 guys on that roster who are best friends who talk every day. And they hang out all the time when they're together. It's interesting because, like, for a lot of those kids, especially because, you look at like a Ty Thompson who comes from Columbia, Missouri. Mm-hmm. You see a Jackson Garland who comes from, random, middle of Virginia. A lot of these kids' best friends are these kids. So when they do come and play together, yes, part of it's baseball, but the other piece is they hang out with their best friend because they may not have those kind of players in their area. So, like, in those areas, they're like the superstar, but they can't feel normal. And here they can feel normal is basically what I'm getting at.
No, I love it. And I think it's important. It takes all types of teams to make a great event.
Yeah.
It takes a team that maybe, from an outsider's perspective is maybe a little more buttoned up. It takes a team like yours that embraces personality.
Yeah.
That I'm sure has a head coach in you that, hey, here's the line though, like we're going to have fun, but here's the line because we want you to get better.
Yeah.
Talk to me about communicating with families. How important is that to you? Like this 25 team, when you get to seniors, they're pretty much men. They're doing a lot of deciding for them. Mm-hmm. Not the 25, 26s, 27s. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about communicating with families. How important is that for you?
I think it's very important. I mean, a lot of what we do, though, however, does still go through the player, even at the young ages. But the cool part of parents is like they have the ability to pick up the phone and call whenever they want. And if they have questions about area code, because obviously that their concept comes up for underclass this year for them. Whether it's like how do I get in a junior national? Should I go to this showcase or that showcase? I would say that's the value and resource that we play for parents. Is obviously this. I mean people get inundated with these emails every day.
Sure.
And obviously it kind of makes me laugh how like other orgs kind of say they help develop players, but I kind of look back and go, well, we're all doing the same thing. If I live in New Jersey and this kid lives in Michigan, how much development are we really doing? But I tend to tell people, do we try to teach the game as best we can while we're there? 1,000%. We practice the day before, stuff like that. But the biggest piece I think we are for parents is a right-hand resource to make sure that they're being financially conscious of the decisions they're making.
Sure. That's interesting. And the investment they're making in the future. Yeah. It's almost like SAT or ACT prep as a parent. How much, when do I do it, what matters most? You want to find a good advisor that can guide you, in the academic side. So 15 states on this national team, give or take, and some Texans sneaking in there.
Yeah.
But a majority of your core heartbeat, at least up till now, has been Rust Belt and Eastern Seaboard cold weather states.
Yep.
Describe the athlete from your perspective. That's why I love interviewing Dan McDonald of Louisville, because he's fearless.
Yep.
He's fearless to bring on a player from Ohio, from Wisconsin. As a matter of fact, that's who he is.
Yep.
What is it about that player, the edge that they may bring?
So I think it's that blue collar in them. And they're gritty, and they come in pissed off that no one knows who they are. Like, no one knew who Ike Irish was. I mean, Brock Porter, I'll make a joke, didn't make Select Fest. And then all of a sudden he's a fourth rounder signed for almost $4 million. The interesting part about that area is it's typically a heavier PBR area. And again, PBR does a great job, but these kids want something different. And I was able to kind of like capitalize on that idea.
Sure.
And a lot of programs out there are also more youth driven, and they get forgotten about after 14. And it's about putting those kids together. And, like I said, they come with an edge, and it's different. It's like upper blue collar, if I could say that, which is not white. It's not that white collar type, but it's also not Alabama driven. It's like that happy middle of the two, and they just want to get noticed.
Yeah, it's interesting, and those kind of players are seeing more and more of the Jared Kelnicks in the big leagues with that edge. I want to talk about your 25 team, if you don't mind. The number one team in the nation when you look at the travel ball rankings. And again, understand this, folks. This is year 3. We're talking about year 3.
And this is the only second year they've been together.
So this second year, last year you guys won the MLK championship. You won it. You guys won the National Elite Championship. You won it. You went to the finals of the 15U WWBA. And then you won the WWBA Sophomore Worlds. Like, those are hundreds and hundreds of teams, some of them. To get to any sort of quarter or Sweet 16 is amazing. So what are some of the characteristics? Before I'm going to sneak a few of these players in, because we got to break them down scout-wise. I want your scout on some of these players. What are the characteristics of that team?
So it's funny. So their first tournament, we go to the national program anyway for PBR, and we go 1-3. And so we're 0-3, getting ready for a consolation game. And I'm like, guys, I said, what do you want to do? I said, do you want me to keep letting you guys roll out there and play? Or do you want to try something different? They said, let's try something different. So we started playing small ball, started bunting. So then, and it worked. We ended up scoring 13 runs in that consolation game. And we get to Hoover. We end up bunting 38 times in 8 games. And just driving teams insane. Because, you look at the roster and you see the commits on there. Yeah. Which obviously, a lot of kids are new for this summer. But even last year's group was pretty highly talented. And everyone just assumed that we were just going to let them just play. And all of a sudden you start bunting, you start running, and you start, putting teams on their heels. They don't know what to do. Like, I won't name the team, but we scored two key runs in the game, which you can go dig it up yourself, with 2 outs because we tried stealing third base and the catcher threw the ball right in the left field. And it's that pressure aspect because I feel like if you do national team versus national team, it's very easy to just put your hands back and say, well, we'll just go bully ball people. But what we learned was if you can put a little local feel to it, then you're really putting them on their heels because they don't do it. Because like I said, I mean, the funny part is, for them, it's easy to play the other national teams. The tougher ones are like your 6'4" your South Charlotte Panthers, your Florida Burns, the guys that practice all the time. Because, I mean, Danny Prego is amazing at this. Every time we play 6'4", I'm absolutely terrified. Because there's a back pick coming from one of 10 different directions. And we're not prepped for it. So, South Charlotte knows how to bunt, knows how to defend it. Those are the teams that always put us on our heels. And I was like, wait a minute. If I just try to put a little bit of that into everybody else with the talent that we have, you're going to be able to run circles around people. And, I mean, obviously, too, it's nice when you have pitchers that can go out there and throw 89, 91, and you just keep rolling them out there. And, the toughest part with that team originally was when you have higher-end arms, especially with the teams they come from, because, they're not coming from big-time teams. They come from smaller regional teams. They have never thrown out the bullpen. They're always used to being that Sunday guy, starting the quarters or the semis, and now it's like, oh, no. We're in a 2-1 barn burner right now, and it's the 5th inning, and you got to get hot in 7.5 minutes. That's one of the coolest parts, Butch Thompson's taught me, is the whole 7.5 minute rule. And that's why I think, whether Cameron Tilley gets drafted high enough or goes to Auburn, I prepped him to be a bullpen guy. He can get ready in 7 minutes. And, and Auburn thinks maybe next year he could be their closer as a freshman. But, that's one of college's biggest pet peeves about high school arms is they're not pen ready. And that was probably one of the transition pieces. But once they figured that out, it was so easy.
That's cool. The culture. Before I let you go, and thank you for coming to our studios,
Yep.
I want to throw some names at you.
Okay.
Just give me the coach's perspective, and let's go back to Ty Thompson. For our viewers, he's a shortstop, ranked 52nd in the country, Tennessee commit from Columbia, Missouri.
Yep.
In your fall events, had an OPS of about 1,200, number one player in Missouri. And by the way, after you guys won the sophomore event, he went and played with the big boys in Jupiter. Tell me about Ty as a player.
So funny thing is, Ty goes to Jupiter, goes 1 for 13. But that wasn't, the bats were great. His one big hit came up against South Charlotte, but he didn't strike out one time. And you're facing arms continuously, 90, 93, game after game.
You bet.
And
that's a senior event. He's a sophomore.
He's a sophomore. And the adjustments he made, and he made it look easy. While you're watching all these other kids strike out. It's like, whoa, he's putting the bat on the ball. I mean, but back to him, tools-wise, he runs a 6.45. It's somewhere in there. Flies. He could be the next Trey Turner.
Okay.
Same frame. If you look up Trey's perfect game profile when he was a senior, 6'1", 160 pounds. And he did all the same things. And then yesterday, I just got a video of him hitting one off the top of the fence at Lake Point in a high school event. I'm like, there's the power starting to come out now. He's starting to put the weight on him. And the arm is amazing. He can make every throw from shortstop. And then all of a sudden, you stick him on the mound, and he's up to 91 miles an hour, and you're like, this is a kid who weighs 160 pounds. And then he has all that, athleticism in the world to do that. Good thing Tony started in Missouri because he found a diamond in the rough there that no one knew about out of the gate.
Taylor Tracy's an outfielder.
Yep.
He's also a Tennessee commit. He's from Austin, Texas. Similar numbers in the fall, including a couple of home runs. Dad Kevin played at Texas Tech. Tell me a little bit about Taylor. Scout him up for me.
Yeah, his dad, obviously golf pro. He's given me lessons on the road, which is a blast. His dad played for Frank Anderson, so that's the Tennessee connection there. Talk about one of the most fiercest competitors you're ever going to meet. And sometimes you got to reel him in every once in a while, but you love that fire from him.
Yeah.
And, and everyone thinks, oh, he's 6'3", he's a lefty, he's going to be a pitcher. The bat's just as electric. And I don't think some people missed on that part, but the amount of juice that comes off that bat, even when he hits a hard ground ball, you're like, it's literally flying off that thing, and you're like, oh, there's something there. And then all of a sudden you saw the power numbers with him going right center gap in Fort Myers at Terry Park. I mean, that's not that easy. And he makes it look easy. And again, like I said, that competitive level, I mean, he'll pitch whenever you want him to. And he'll come in base with a 1 out, say, give me the ball. He goes, I'm going to go do this thing for you.
That's exciting. That's exciting. So you have 5 Virginia commits on this team as I look at the roster. One of them is Jackson Garland. He's a right-handed pitcher. He's right there around that 100 ranking. He's from Virginia, #1 right-handed pitcher in Virginia for all our viewers. Cortland High School. Who is Jackson Garland?
Jackson Garland might be the coolest Virginia commit they're probably ever going to get. With the hair, for the hair, the personality, they're getting, a fun kid out of the gate there. From a pitching perspective, it's one of the cleanest arm actions you're going to see. He has the frame. He has feel for the breaking ball. And, like sometimes you get kids like after they commit that want to put themselves on pitch counts every once in a while just to kind of protect their arm. He's not like that. He's like, AJ, I'm going 7 innings today, and he was going to fight me. Like, we were in the fall, and we were playing the NBA scout team, I think. And he's at like 85 pitches after 6. And I'm like, Jackson, that's enough. It's the fall. You did your thing. He's like, AJ, I'm going back after the 7th. And he was like, you're not going to stop me. And I'm going, well, thank God Drew Dickinson's here from the pitching coach from UVA, like staying behind the plate, because I'm like, well, I could probably use this as an out. Because otherwise, if I didn't have that out, he might have just pushed me over or just put me into a trash can and just put himself back out there. And he would have just done it for 10 more pitches, which again would have been, dumb for their part. But, but he has feel of that changeup. And again, like I said, one of the most fun personalities that probably Brian O'Connor's going to have his hands on. So
you got a lot of Virginia commits. The last player I want to ask you about is an NC State commit.
Yep.
Ranked around 200, somewhere in that 200 to 300, from Ashton, Pennsylvania.
Yep.
Plays football too. #2 right-handed pitcher in the state of Pennsylvania. The son of Corey and Nicole is Corey Sheridan. Tell me about Corey.
So funny story about him is, so I'm digging around Perfect Game last year, and like I knew that 25 team needed an arm, and I'm like, who is this Corey Sheridan kid? Again, because he's in my backyard, because I live in Gibbstown, New Jersey. Ashton is literally across the Commodore Barry Bridge, right by MSI. And I'm going, how did I miss on this kid? So then, go to the local pizza joint, hang out with the dad, hang out with the kid for a little bit. And then I go and watch him pitch, and I'm like, oh, there's something here. Because the arm works. I mean, he's not the biggest of kids, but the arm works, throws a ton of strikes, breaking ball's good. And I'm like, maybe I have a chance here. So then, obviously, he was playing for the Young Guns last year as well. So with him, he was able to do 2 events with us. He was able to do the USA Baseball Tournament in Cary and the PG World Series. And I gave him the ball against Wow Factor, which is probably the #4 ranked team in the country at the time, in Cary, which is metal bat. And we're playing for the pool there. And he goes 5 innings like it was nothing. And I'm going, how about this? So then, we get to the fall, and all of a sudden now he's up to 91 miles an hour. I'm like, where did this come from? And the breaking ball's tight, and then all of a sudden, schools start talking, and then NC State jumps in and it works. And the 2 other names you didn't mention on there, which I think when you have those kind of pitchers that you just mentioned, you need 2 dynamite catchers. And when you have Ben Peterson going to UNC, and Thomas O'Connell going to UVA, it's the greatest thing ever. I mean, if you think about the catchers that we've had in this program. When it was Arsenal, we had Joe Mack and Will Rogers. Joe was a first rounder. We know Will's at Arizona State. In 22, you had Ike Irish and Nate Voss, and obviously everyone knows who Ike is. And Nate's a freshman at Michigan. And in 2023, you have Mark Gialusi, who's going to Virginia, and Jonathan Fitz going to San Diego out of Kentucky. And then 24, you saw Gavin Kelly going to West Virginia, and then in 5, you have these 2.
Yeah.
And I promise you this, we don't get those pitchers without those 2 catchers. You talk about Thomas O'Connell, who's a left-handed bat, good arm behind the plate, good receiver, good blocker. Typical Virginia guy. I mean, left-handed hitter, has that little Matt Dice, look to him. And then you have Ben Peterson, who allows your pitchers to be 1/7 to the plate because he might have one of the biggest arms in the class. And there's some hints of juice there because For example, we were taking BP to NC State before Carey. It's like 7 homers out. Now, the hit tool will get better there, but for those pitchers to have those two, because especially, we wrote off those names. You can't really forget about those two. And to get those kids here, and like I said, they were uncommitted. They weren't even ranked by you guys at that point. And then school saw them, and then, obviously pitchers are going to want to throw to elite catchers. Mm-hmm. It's going to be funny for me to say this, but, if we had 2 Humpty Dumptys behind the plate, you don't end up with Jackson Garland and Drew Kindland and Corey Sheridan and Taylor Tracy, and you can just keep going and going and going.
I like the term Humpty Dumpty.
Yeah.
I like that. That's the perfect place to end, because I was raised by a man who pitched his way to the Hall of Fame who taught me to respect catchers. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad you mentioned them. Thanks for making the trip up to lift up your program.
Yep.
Up here to Brooklyn and battling the traffic. Man, it's just cool. It's just cool to, Ajay, to get to know who Artillery Baseball is. We really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, it's that edge that you find on this eastern seaboard and into the Midwest. It's kind of urban baseball, if you will, or cold weather baseball right here. It's Artillery Baseball in our Brooklyn studios. This has been cool.